What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Chris Evans here from Kentucky Weather. And let me get this music cut off here. Didn't even want it in the first place, but here we go. All right. How is everybody doing this fine? What is it? Tuesday. There we go. Tuesday afternoon here. So I've went ahead and pulled up the WPC rainfall risk, excessive rainfall risk from the WPC today. We're going to cover a couple of things in this video. We're going to cover the flooding risk that we have today, and then we're going to cover the severe risk that we have tomorrow. But I wanted to start this video off and kind of go a little bit further screen here, and you guys can see here in Kentucky, this is Louisville. Here's Lexington, who's also included in this slight risk of excessive rainfall as we get in the afternoon, because this afternoon I don't think we're really worried about any severe weather in Kentucky or anywhere in the Ohio Valley, to be honest. I think we're really more worried about the rain, excessive rainfall and flooding risk. We seen a lot of flooding yesterday in the E-Town area. I know we were crazy, like there were so many reports of flooding out of the E-Town area. I went driving in the E-Town area and seen a lot of flooding in that hour. So, I mean, it was crazy just from a thunderstorm that had a lot of moisture that trained over the same area for a long time. So as we go into today, it looks like a very similar rinse, cycle, repeat type of setup. I think this one's going to be more closer to I-75 here. Again, Lexington, Maysville, and Huntington and Richmond, all in that slight risk for excessive rainfall from the WPC. So again, if you get in rainfall today, understand that you could get some flooding very quickly, very, very quickly. As we head into today, there's a lot of moisture values. Our PWAT values are very high. So there's a good likelihood that somewhere in this yellow is going to be under a flash flood warning. Now, it's going to be more localized, just like it was in just the E-Town area. Not everybody will see it, but I do think that somebody in this yellow will see it. So it's something that can be very dangerous. I say it all the time. Turn around, don't drown. Don't make a dumb decision because you don't know how deep that water can be. Now, I want to pull up the SPC's risk for today. And again, well, we are under a marginal risk here, but I don't think the severe threat is that high. You'll see, though, as we zoom out here, see out here into Wichita, Kansas, we got a moderate risk for 80 to 90 mile an hour wind. That's possible this afternoon. Big slight risk as well. But you will see that this enhanced risk is now, this is from the SPC, including a very small sliver of northwestern Kentucky here, just west of Evansville. But really, when we look at it as a whole, it's really targeting all the way up into middle Indiana and northwestern Ohio. That is where our severe risk is looking like it's going to be the most elevated tomorrow. And I will say we're going to dive into some data here, especially on the severe risk tomorrow. But I will be chasing, me and Grayson will be chasing tomorrow. And really, I've been looking at data for the past hour, trying to decide what the best environment, where the best environment will be for tornadoes tomorrow. And I'll say I am impressed with the wind shear that we have tomorrow. We'll go through some of that here in a minute, but the wind shear in June is usually not as supportive for severe weather as it was yesterday, localized, today localized, and tomorrow even more localized, I think. But, I mean, we have impressive wind shear that is driving enhanced risk that I think possibility for a moderate risk maybe up here, I would say maybe central to southern Illinois, maybe. I don't think this is going to go moderate, though, guys. I really like the enhanced. I do think, and I said this earlier, that the slight risk will probably get moved. And I'll draw an arrow here because I have been looking at data a little bit. I think as we get into tomorrow, I could see this slight risk getting extended all the way out here, guys. I think anywhere, not like that. Oh, boy. Okay. Yeah, we're going to put the drawer away. Put the marker away, Chris. Anyways, I think that the best, I think a lot of Kentucky is going to be under that slight risk. I do not know why this is not canceling out. So we're just going to get off weather-wise, and we're going to look at the HRRR. So here we go. So I wanted to go through some model data about what today and tomorrow looks like, and I think we're going to start here with today. This is the latest HRRR run. And again, we've seen the WPC's excessive rainfall risk really targeted the I-75 corridor, and you can see why. Around 3, 4 o'clock, we're going to get isolated cells that are going to pop up, and some of them will train over the same area. So again, if you're even Cincinnati, Huntington, anywhere in this area in eastern to central Kentucky, needs to be on the alert if you get training of cells today. Again, as we pull a sounding, I want to show you guys this is there's a severe risk at all today, and the reason for the look at the sounding from the HRRR, you will see that our wind shear is just not very good with this setup. We only have 16 1 kilometer shear, which is not very good. We do have it's decent shear, which is why we have that marginal risk. Also have a 70 dew point and thick layer cake. 1500, so not that thick, but the hodograph is really weak. It's typical summertime thunderstorms. Could we get a severe thunderstorm warning today? I think it's possible, but I don't think it's going to be widespread. It'll be very isolated, and the risk is the biggest risk for today. I think just like we saw in E-Town yesterday, we could see a repeat of that somewhere else. And I start wording out there, people understand. Although it might be isolated, it could be you. So just understanding in the afternoon, you might have to deal with some rain showers and some flooding as we get through our afternoon commute. So I'm going to show now the 12Z HRRR here. I want to kind of give you a timeline for tomorrow and the rest of today. So as we get into the afternoon, again, you're going to firing along and east of I-65. And as we get into the morning, you will see those showers will move off. What I want you to note here is we have an MCS, okay, a mesoscale convective system pushing through Missouri, Arkansas. Guys, this is where we had that model that we were just looking at. So when the exact track of this is going to affect where that outflow boundary is left off for tomorrow and where in return the new storms will fire. So tracking this first complex of storms, okay, tracking this MCS that's going to be moving through Wichita, Kansas today, and as we get into the morning, will it track through, southwest Arkansas, or will it be more in central Missouri and northern Missouri? The models have kind of been everywhere with this MCS in particular. So when the models struggle, yes, and you know that this is going to die off, leave an outflow boundary, and another one's going to form, the models can be everywhere, but the setup kind of stays the same regardless of what the models show. So we know we've got to watch this complex of storms, the first complex in the morning. The exact track of that, where it dies off, because it's going to die off as the HRRR shows here, we'll go through another couple of hours here. And this is in the morning, and you can see all this MCS is dying off, and it's leaving an outflow boundary for in the afternoon, more storms to fire. Once you heat up the atmosphere, you're going to get more storms to fire. The HRRR has some storms here, and some of the models do have, the MCS making it here, or maybe an outflow boundary, something sparking storms off in the afternoon. So I don't think that that's impossible, but I do think that these cells are so far, they're racing ahead of our surface flow. So our wind shear is not great until later in the afternoon. Once you get to 18, 19Z, 20Z later in the afternoon, then our wind shear is going to be a little bit better. But as we stand right now, if these fire at about noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, if we do have storms that fire, I don't think the severe risk is very high, and I think that the flooding risk will be massive with storms with very high PWAT values tomorrow afternoon, early afternoon tomorrow in Kentucky. And the reason I say that is because I think that this MCS over here, guys, I think this first MCS is going to die off somewhere here in central Missouri, southwest Illinois, and it's going to leave off an outflow boundary. And on that outflow boundary, you can see the HRRR here starts firing storms off right here on where I think that outflow boundary is going to be. But again, tracking where that first MCS dies off is key. So for me as a storm chaser and trying to make sure I'm in the right position tomorrow, I'm going to be checking where that MCS, that first MCS complex, where it's at in the morning and where it's leaving that outflow boundary. Because if you can get some surface heating along that outflow boundary, these cells at initiation is going to be they're going to be discrete, meaning you will have a initial tornado risk with the first cells because they're not going to form into an MCS. And again, as we look, remember the wind shear that we had today that I was showing on the HRRR? Well, this hodograph is a lot different, guys. This is a hodograph that is supportive for severe weather. It's been supportive for severe weather. But here, again, along that surface low, this is contaminated though, but we only have 600 Cape. So really finding where that outflow boundary is left tomorrow and where we have a lot of surface heating, where we have 1,500 to 2,000, maybe over 2,000 joules of Cape is where that severe threat will be maximized tomorrow. But I do think that a lot of us are going to have a severe risk tomorrow, including places like Indianapolis, like Effingham, Illinois, like E-Town, Kentucky, and even into Bowling Green. I think from the I-65 corridor here to the west, all need to be on guard here for possible severe weather. I think damaging winds are the primary threat. I think because as you look here, as we get into the afternoon, you will see this kind of forms into a line, right? And as we get into that line, you'll get bowing segments, you'll get a quick spin up tornado. But as you move further into the afternoon, the tornado threat gets much lower because it's more of a line, an MCS or a QLCS. But I think, again, I'm going to back this up a couple hours here. So this is in the afternoon, let's say around 6 o'clock. And I think we have to watch here in Southern Illinois, Boot Hill, Missouri. And there's two threats tomorrow. Let me also say this. Let me back up a little bit. Along our surface low, here's our surface low right here, just west of Chicago. It's going to be moving in this direction. These cells up here in Chicago are going to be a problem. I think we have a higher tornado risk up there. I think the best risk for tornadoes is up there. Again, when you get 3,000 Cape along a warm front, guys, with a significant fat layer of Cape here, with turning of the winds, as we look at this hodograph, you will see the winds turn. They're in the southwest and they go straight south back to the southwest, and they veer back at the surface with a south surface wind. That is a hodograph that will produce tornadoes. And I do think that the tornado risk up here with these cells near Chicago in the afternoon, early afternoon, 2 to 6 o'clock, I think this is your first tornado risk. I think that there could be a 10% tornado risk added with this. But as we get further into the afternoon, after we get the surface low a little closer and we get that surface heating along that outflow boundary, we have to watch these cells. Any cells that pop up here in Southern Illinois, in the Boot Hill of Missouri, maybe Western Kentucky, depending on where that is, where that outflow boundary is, because again, we have a hodograph that is supportive. Well, maybe not that one. There is a lot of turning with that, but let's go a little bit closer here. Let's go Southern Illinois, a little bit south of Effingham, which is where I think we'll have a tornado risk. This hodograph's not great. The wind shear is not great, but it might just be the HRRR over mixing again with an 85 temperature and a 68 dew point. That's typical HRRR here. But I do think we have to watch these cells here. Let's go back a little bit. Sorry, guys. In the afternoon, here we go. 1 second. We'll get back to where we were. There we go. These cells in the afternoon around 6 to 9 o'clock. Before everything becomes linear, how fast does it become linear, and where exactly are these cells gonna be at? Where are they gonna fire at, and where is that outflow boundary at in the afternoon? One more thing I want to show here is kind of our mid-layer wind shear. And what this is kind of what I'm looking for with the 500 millibar height is just you're really looking for those little kinks and short waves to where storms will fire off on Wednesday. And when we get going here, let me get to Wednesday afternoon. You'll see we have enough wind shear in the mid layer to support severe weather. Anything really over 25 knots is supported for severe weather, and we have 25 knots. Let me get you to Wednesday afternoon here. So this is Wednesday afternoon, and you'll see we have widespread about 30 knots of mid-layer shear here. But you'll see we have a little bit of ripples here in the shear. And this is where you have to watch for that storm initiation and where you look for storms to fire. And right afternoon at the onset, I think here in south central Illinois is really in western Missouri, and then eventually into to southern Indiana, northern. But I think at initiation, this is where you're looking at, okay? I think just south of Effingham, just north of the Boot Hill, just north of, let's say, near Carbondale, Illinois. I think that's a good spot, is where we have to watch for any tornado threat. But as we get into the afternoon, I think damaging winds are going to be the main risk because it will be a line of storms as we get into the afternoon. So I'm going to do one more thing here. I'm going to show you guys the risk one last time. If you guys have any questions, please throw them in the chat. Let me see them real quick. I'm going to see if I can pull up this chat. Looks like I do have a question here, maybe. Go time. Chris, I appreciate that, Mike. Thanks for joining in. If we have any questions from anybody here as we get everything loaded up, please let me know, guys. Just leave any questions, comments, concerns in the chat. I'll make sure I cover you guys before we get off of here. But again, I think today, we'll go over our severe risk for tomorrow one more time. And again, looking at that data, you can see how that severe risk kind of covers both of our threats tomorrow. Along this warm front up here in Chicago, closer to the surface low, I think there is a tornado threat up here near South Bend, Indiana, just north of Fort Wayne. I think up here, just southwest of Detroit, Toledo, somewhere in here, I think is a bigger tornado threat. And then we have to look down here in the Carbondale, Cape Girardeau, just south of Effingham. I think in this area too, you'll also have a tornado threat. But then as the storms grow upscale into a line, I think we'll have a damaging wind threat, and hopefully we'll get this to work right. Let's see if we can get this to work right. I do think that this slight risk, I'm going to change this to yellow, make it a little bit easier for you guys here, is going to get pushed off here. Probably somewhere in this area. I would say as data gets a little bit more confident, I could definitely see a slight risk get extended right about there. Again, I don't think that it's a crazy risk. Oh boy, here we go with the draw again. Why did y'all let me take that out, guys? Again, I don't think it is going to be a widespread risk, but not a big tornado risk tomorrow, I don't think. This is a wind-driven enhanced risk. We'll look at this one more time here, and you'll see you're going to have to ignore this little Q of our QLCS here. But you'll see this is a wind-driven enhanced risk. So the wind threat is the biggest. I do think that this could get a little bit extended, maybe just west of I-65 as we get into the afternoon. But, I mean, again, I think our biggest risk tomorrow is definitely wind. You'll see we do have a 5% tornado risk, though, for all of this area. And would not surprise me to see a 10% risk somewhere up here, South Bend, Toledo, just north of Fort Wayne. Down here, I think a 5% risk is probably sufficient for tomorrow. I don't think our tornado risk is overly too impressive, but we could definitely still see a couple tornadoes, especially, I think, on the southern end and the northern end. It could be a little double-barreled enhanced risk tomorrow with the tornado threat. But again, don't think that it's a crazy risk, and I definitely don't want to forget about our flooding risk today. We have that flooding risk for Kentucky here. That's the day 2. We'll go to today. You'll see here in places like Lexington, Maysville, and Huntington. Just make sure you're weather aware. If you have, in the afternoon, you got to go home. Make sure you understand that we're going to get some rain and possibly some isolated, localized flash flooding with the training of cells that we could have in the afternoon. But again, I want to make sure everybody knows that we will be chasing on the 0 meter page tomorrow. Myself and Grayson are going to go out. Haven't decided exactly where we're going to go right now. I got to talk with Grayson a little bit, look at some more data, but we will definitely be out and we'll be tracking these storms as they get to Kentucky. So as they get close to Kentucky, we'll be live with chaser feeds, as we'll have Corey and Mike on the broadcast tomorrow. So again, I appreciate everybody coming in. I appreciate all the likes and comments and all the support that we've got in the past couple of weeks. Make sure you stay tuned to the 0 meter chip page, because we will have the live broadcast tomorrow when severe weather is imminent in Kentucky. And really, I think we'll probably be covering Illinois and Indiana as well. So again, I appreciate everybody coming in here. And until next time, see you all later.